precepts. So shall I talk of thy wondrous works. My soul melteth for heaviness. Strengthen thou me according to thy word. Remove from me the way of lying, and grant me thy law graciously. I have chosen the way of...
Good morning, welcome to Line by Line Bible Studies. Continuing in the Psalms today, Psalm 17, where we left off last time. Let's skim the first part just to pick up in context. It's not a long psalm, but so hear the right, attend to my cry, give ear unto my prayer that goeth not out of feigned lips. Let my sentence come forth from thy presence. Let thine eyes behold the things that are equal. Thou hast proved mine heart. Thou hast visited me in the night. Thou hast tried me and shall find nothing. I am purposed that my mouth shall not transgress. Concerning the works of men, by the word of thy lips have I kept me from the paths of the destroyer. Hold up my goings in thy paths, that my footsteps slip not. I have called upon thee, for thou wilt hear me, O God. Incline thine ear unto me, and hear my speech. Show thy marvelous loving kindness, O thou that savest by thy right hand. I'm sorry, I forgot where we are. Okay. Thou that savest by thy right hand them which put their trust in thee, from those that rise up against them. Keep me as the apple of thine eye. Hide me under the shadow of thy wings. From the wicked that oppress me, from my deadly enemies who compass me about. They are enclosed in their own fat. With their mouth they speak proudly. They have now compassed us in our steps. They have set their eyes bowing down to the earth. Like as a lion that is greedy of his prey, and as it were a young lion lurking in secret places. Arise, O Lord, disappoint him, cast him down, deliver my soul from the wicked, which is thy sword. From men which are thy hand, O Lord, from men of the world, which have their portion in this life, whose belly thou fillest with hid treasure. They are full of children, and leave the rest of their substance to their babes. And as for me, I will behold thy face in righteousness, I shall be satisfied, and when I awake with thy likeness. Interesting things in this conclusion, some of which make me, I'm like, huh. I have now compassed us in our steps. Quite interesting. I'm going to have to definitely, let's see, I have to look at some of those words or other translations just to see, I'm like, is that exactly how it's supposed to be? But before I do that, before I go ahead and do it, let's just get my first impressions, because I always think that's useful. I say before running off to some other place, what impression can we draw, from reading this? You don't have to go to someone, they may have a better idea, Part of one of the things that's going wrong with our world is that people are not practicing governing themselves, and people don't believe people can govern themselves. But if people can't govern themselves, then how can people govern people at all? You know what I mean? If you can't govern yourself, you can't govern the world. And very much so. I mean, that's the case of the governor in my state, I didn't intend to make this about politics. There is something political about it. They're enclosed with their own fat. Yeah, our governor's a very fat man. And I've been overweight in my time. Never... I got up close to 300 pounds once when I was, was it around 30-something? I forget the exact age I was. No, it was It was around 2008, I think, when I got my maximum. I remember I saw 290 on the scale, and I thought, I'm 6'3", but 290 is obese. You know, right, going up towards morbidly so. I don't think I had. I don't know if I qualified as morbidly obese, but certainly obese. And you know, I'm not pleased to be overweight at all, even now. But it's difficult to, depending on your cross section of lifestyle and all kinds of other things. I definitely feel fitter, which is good. So the wicked that are in, he's praying. We talked about all of his praying, but now he's talking about now the subject of what is his concern. There's some wicked, deadly enemies who compass me about. These are fat men. Now think in terms of metaphorically. Some people are. I mean, I know a lot of good Christian folks who are overweight or fat or even obese and morbidly so. I've known throughout my time very nice, kind people. And it's just their sin. We all have sins we struggle with. Sometimes we don't know we're even struggling with them. I would say some sins are easier to see. When someone has a drinking problem or a drug problem or even a pornography problem, but that is one that's maybe sometimes something easier to hide, right? Or let's say they have a some sort of or obesity or something like that. That's obvious external. That's one of the most visible ones of all. Someone might be an alcoholic and nobody knows but his family. Someone might be a drug user but nobody knows but their family. Maybe their family doesn't know, but they're somewhat obvious. Here's the thing: is that someone who a Christian who has a problem with any of those things knows they have a problem. I mean, a problem with alcohol. You have a problem with drugs or alcohol, pornography, obesity. Obesity is tough because everybody knows. You just walk into a place and everyone knows you've got a problem. And so it's just one aspect of sin. There are all kinds of other aspects of sin that people don't, necessarily know they have. And everyone else around them may know too, though. I mean, maybe they have anger issues. They have hatred. They have other affairs of the heart that, maybe they don't see. They have no patience when they ought to have patience. And so there's all kinds of other sins that go unseen. And it's unfortunate for people who are fat that they have to be so in public. I think it's humiliating. I know I felt humiliated. That's why they have this whole people don't they talk about fat shaming, and I don't think people should be they should be shamed for being fat. But if you feel a bit ashamed of being fat, it's perfectly normal. I don't want you to be crushed with despair, but there's too many people who have, done something about it. But anyways, and even if you haven't done something about it or can't do something about it or whatever, it's like nothing I'm about to say is meant to be directed at a Christian who merely just has a problem with weight. Sometimes people have an obesity problem, and it is indeed, something like a medical condition. As far as I've known people who seemed they worked out all the time. They watched what they ate, and they still they had real trouble keeping the weight off. And unless they were lying, and stuffing their face full of food, behind everyone's back, it's like they genuinely had some sort of metabolic issue. It's fortunate that you also have to be, people will look at you and think fat. We live in a society that's very fat. They say we're not the fattest country in the world, by the way. I've heard people say that. I don't know. There was 1 year when that was true. Which is we're a big country and we've got a lot of fat people. Part of that's because of success, right? Success, when people are successful, they have excess. Success breeds excess very often. So you have a lot of extra money around, And I'm trying to remember, I remember being said about Pavarotti, the opera singer, that in Italy that basically people expected him to be obese, and to and that part of what it meant to be a successful opera singer was obesity, because it indicated sort of an opulent lifestyle. And there have been times, sometimes that is a sort of there have been times and places where people actually had those views. It's some corrupt view, not in the general population, but of an elite class. Like you look, that the I was trying to like the skinny look, certainly for men, the skinny, scrawny look is not considered attractive. Generally speaking, because a man with success and power tends to fall prey to these things, and it's sort of a signal of like, hey, just like America. America is, we may not be the fattest country, but we have a lot of overweight people, even people who are not necessarily extravagantly wealthy and can afford all this extra food. You know what I mean? Some of it's the quality of food, but you gotta understand, like in times past, like slaves were scrawny because they weren't well fed. I'm thinking Roman times and stuff. People who, they only fed them enough to keep them alive sometimes, depending on the situation. So people were didn't have this ability to just balloon up. So our society is fat, and it is a problem with self-government. It's a problem with telling ourselves no. Like I said, unless you have some other problem, which is I know for me, it was because I liked eating, and I liked relaxing. Who doesn't like to kick back, relax, and eat? Make yourself a pizza. On the way home, stop at a fast food joint. That's one of the things that stopped me from getting up to 300 pounds. Is I just stopped eating fast food. Over 10 years ago, I just stopped eating fast food. I love fast food, but I don't, and I only get it occasionally, like when someone else buys it for me, basically. But I don't go get fast food. So make little stops at the Taco Bell and get a little snack on the way home, and then go have dinner, and then have a thing afterwards. This isn't meant to be a long speech on that, but it's you know how easy it can be. When you live in a land of plenty, to become fat, and fat is an indication of plenty. So someone enclosed in their own fat. It's interesting. Sometimes when people become super obese, the fat closes in and it restricts their breathing and stuff. That's why during the COVID-19 thing, one of the risk factors for death from the disease was obesity, because it already inhibits your breathing. And also, you need more breath. The more weight you have in your body, the more oxygen you need to circulate, the harder it works your system. That's why heart disease and all that stuff, obesity is a risk factor and all those things. So as much as it's possible with us, we want to try, I want to encourage everyone, if you are obese, to do something about it. Why would I say anything else? I don't want to shame you if you haven't or don't, but encourage you that something can be done. And I've often had problems that'll go on and on in my life until I come to a moment of crisis, right? Where it's, I've had enough. And, maybe there is some emotional turmoil. I've gone through some emotionally wrenching things that provoked me ultimately to change my life. And I feel that was the Lord's work. It's like Jesus, when he was going to the cross, he was praying and sweating great drops of blood. Can you imagine the amount of stress he was going through? The pressure he was under. It's like sometimes the pressure and stress we feel is good. though it takes its toll. I mean, you can't be constantly in a distressed state. It can lead to problems. But punctuated stress that you can handle can help you modify yourself by God's power. That is what I have discovered, is that those moments are moments that help me change. And so I do not fear, but I do not want to instigate. People need to get their own sense of, like it has to come from God. It has to be you and your relationship with God that causes these things to come about. I don't want to provoke it by sitting here and just ladling on abuse towards people. I don't think that's particularly kind. And tough love is telling someone a tough truth, but it's not necessarily pummeling them with insults. So that's one of those sins. People, they pummel others with insults, and they think I'm just exercising tough love, but you know what I mean. But they don't see it's like, your sin is you're not seeing it. Some people have the sin of arrogance and pride. I mean, here's pride here, right? So they're enclosed in their own fat. We know what a literal fatness is like, but there's also a metaphorical fatness, which is how fat comes to be. It's being surrounded by excess and consumption. You know what I mean? Excess and consumption. With their mouth they speak proudly. They're full of pride, while at the same time being filled with all this excess and consumption. And because a lot of times having excess, like having lots of money, having access to all kinds of food, and oftentimes wanting to deny the problems we have, we become proud in our speech. A lot of times, I never I don't when I'm overweight. I am overweight. When I was much more overweight, and overweight, it's not horribly overweight. Obviously, people have seen me, but it's like, it's I'm not. I could lose some weight, 20 pounds maybe. What was I gonna say? I got distracted by the stupid part about it. Oh, I almost got it. Yeah, I was proud. The more overweight I am, like when people, if it's enough for anyone to comment, someone comments on my weight, like a family member, or God forbid, like pokes fun, it's like it makes me mad. And that's certainly because of pride. Because it's like I don't want people to see me that way. Even if when I am. I remember when I was, significantly heavier, thinking, I don't want to be, feeling this like if it was, like my wife might look at me innocently in a certain way and not be intending anything, but I'd take it as like a signal. It's like, oh, you're. I'm like, did you just look at me and feel like, boy, my husband's so fat? I'd feel like that. It's pride. So now it says they've compassed us in our steps. They've set their eyes bowing down to the earth. That's where it started to lose me a bit. They've set their eyes bowing down to the earth. Just the bowing down part. I'm gonna look at that a little bit here. Well, just because it says, all right, that's actually not one of the harder parts. It's the part where they say, and by they I mean the scriptures. Like there's a line that's, I guess I know what I think about all this. It says, which have their portion in this life. Right? They have their portion in this life. They have set their eyes bowing down to the earth. I still want to look up bowing down. Just the, I want to know what that word signifies. Oops. Bowing down. To stretch out, spread out, extend, incline, bend. So that's bowing down. Because this is bowing down. To me, I almost felt like they're prostrating themselves, right? That's almost what it sounds like. Like they're bowing down to the earth. They're prostrating themselves. But this word seems to have many more applications. And let's just quickly look over here. On the right-hand side, in the Englishman's Concordance, it also gives us not only the King James, but it gives us the New American Standard, the INT. I guess this word occurs a lot. 213 occurrences. They're not all right there, but I can click here, and I can look at all of them. I guess I probably could have just brought up the... I just want to see the psalm occurrence. So this word is a very basic word, right? And see, again... Let's just look at some of the ways it's done. He hath pitched a tent. He stretched out, and thy stretched out arm extended mercy to me before. Extended mercy. He spreadeth out the heavens, right? Stretched out his hand. Prolong the perfection. Not decline. Now, if I go to, let me look at Genesis, because there's some bowing in Genesis. I probably didn't need to go. Pitched his tent. Let down thy pitcher, pitched his tent. Oh, that's interesting. When you let down your pitcher by a rope, you see the idea of extension. Where he had spread his tent, spread, turned. And I know there's already been, let me put it this way. I know, here we go. First occurrence of bowed. And again, he bowed his shoulder. He turned his shoulder. First place, he bowed his shoulder to bear. But there's a word used for obeisance when you bow down. And that's not this word. Because mostly it's translated. It seems like the number one thing it gets translated is like stretched out, stretched forth. And here's, do you see that? Pervert. Thou shalt not rest the judgment. Extend. I get the point about extend, like, like change. I mean, like, in that sense. And let's see, Psalm 17. Their eyes to cast us down to the ground. Their eyes set to cast to the ground. I don't think that's what it means. They're saying, like, okay, their eyes, they want to cast us down with their eyes. I don't think that's what it means. So I'm definitely not. The translators are trying to interpret it there. Oh, wrong place, Paul. Don't want to go there. So, I don't agree with the translators. As far as, I agree with the definition of the word. But the way they're trying to set this, I just don't see it. And maybe I'm wrong, but certainly that could be the case. But, when it talks about their eyes bowing down, to me, it's like it says. I'm sorry, I'm gonna bring my text back up. Which have their portion in this life. Their eyes are looking at the earth. Their eyes are downward instead of upward. There's. Let's see. Was there any point in this where he mentions his eyes? Because there are, to thee I lift up my eyes, O thou that dwellest in the heavens. Behold, as a bride. As a servant looketh to the hand of his master, and the eyes of a servant to the hand of her mistress, so our eyes are set upon the Lord my God, that thou might have mercy on us. Like, that's another psalm. It's a song I wrote a long time ago and never got released. I don't think anyone's ever really heard it, because I never finished it. I still remember it, though. I will call upon thee, incline thy ear to me. Keep me as the apple of your eye. So it doesn't mention it here, but it's a common motif in the Psalms to talk about lifting up your eyes to heaven. I look to the hills whence my salvation comes. I look up because that's where God is, right? These have cast their eyes down to the earth. Ah, what have we here? They're looking around themselves and say they're earth-focused, earth-centric in their mindset. You know, they are enclosed in their fat. They're full of pride. They have now, you know, we're walking along and we're just doing our thing, and they have compassed us about. They're looking at the earth. They in many ways, they desire to possess the earth. They desire to dominate the earth. They desire to control the earth and the things of the earth. And since we're walking on the earth, they want to control us too. They want to lie in wait for us, as a lion that is greedy of his prey. They lurk in secret places. My mind's running to all like the rioting and not the scene aspect of the rioting, but like all the little groups that prepared for this day, for this time, you know, practicing the arts of destruction, you know, practicing the arts. In fact, wasn't there something about the paths of the destroyer? The paths of the destroyer have compassed round about the paths of the righteous. You know, there was even in our little town here, in Freeport. It's a city of 26,000 people. It's like 10 miles from where I live. The village I technically live, I'm part of, is 5 miles the other way. And even in our little town, there was some unrest. You know, and my brother drove by to check out what was going on, the protesting. And it wasn't black folks. There was a few, but it was mostly just fat white women, quite frankly. And, you know, screaming and hollering and et cetera, breaking things. And it was an interesting thing I saw. It was weird. The day after they had riots, which was the unrest and riot, it was such a pathetically small thing. However, they were breaking stuff. And I don't know if you saw my video, the downtown of Freeport. That's where I filmed it on location for the music video. But I think I mentioned that the other day. But like, this town is already like struggling. You know, it's like a lot of empty real estate downtown. It's, you know, they're trying to revitalize, and then these people come and they smash up the little town center. Like, what do they got to do with any of this? You know, it's people who are these fat, proud people who got, I mean, they've got everything they need. And so all they have left is to complain and to attack industrious people who are just trying to do the right thing with their lives. You know what I mean? And they just smash in glass and stuff like that. There's no protest. It's just, we want to create wanton destruction. And then I saw, I'm the day after, when I was in town, I was surprised because I went to town and I noticed there was all kinds of boarding up of places because people were afraid it was going to happen again. I thought that time, it was like, no, they'll get a handle on this. This is probably not even a big deal. They were afraid it was going to go crazy. I think they had an inflated sense of their town. No, it's not exciting enough for that, fellas. But there was like boarding up of the liquor stores, boarding up a couple of grocery stores. And I went to buy gas, and I left the gas station, and I noticed this young lady walking down the street towards the center of town. And it was in a residential area, you know, several miles away from the center of town. And she had a backpack, and she had a black umbrella stuck in the back of the backpack, like in her lower back. And I'm like, it ain't gonna rain. It's not calling for rain. Who carries black umbrellas around, you know? And I was considering talking to the police about it, like letting them know, you know, somebody's coming, and they don't seem like... It was very odd. You know what I mean? It just seemed odd. Especially because it was like a half hour before the curfew. You know, and it seemed like they were walking in the wrong direction. Seemed like a well-to-do young white girl. Well-to-do. But then I was downtown and I saw the National Guard was there, and I'm like, yeah, right. I don't think this is this little suburban girl's rebellion. It's not even a suburb. There's no herb. I mean, this little quasi-urban rebellion was not going anywhere. At least not here. Okay, and so, but I mean, the reason these things come about, the wicked become fat and they set their sights on the earth. I mean, they're filled up with things. They become proud in their arrogance and in their I have all. And they become wealthy, and they want to control the earth. They want to start making. They find people doing things and then they don't, and they want to. They think they can do you know what I mean? They think that in the pride of their heart that they can remake the world in their image. And I was thinking about it because I was hearing about, they talked about how a lot of these cells for these terrorist organizations on our soil are, they meet secretly, quietly, and it makes me think, lurking in the secret places, greedy of their prey. The wicked are preparing to sow chaos and destruction. It says, arise, O Lord, disappoint him, cast him down. Deliver my soul from the wicked, which is thy sword. And that threw me off too. I was like, whoa, the wicked, which is thy sword. I almost wanted to look at it, but I mean, my thought, initially just my thought, well, the wicked is a sword of the Lord. We know the word of God is God's sword, right? The word of God is like a sharp two-edged sword, right? But the wicked are also God's sword. Like, especially you understand from the perspective of the Hebrews and stuff. It's like, or even in the New Testament, I can talk about the New Testament where Paul talks about obey the powers because they bear not the sword in vain. Now, in this country, the current unrest is not, those people don't have real power. They would like to get power, and God forbid they should get it, because that will be extremely difficult. Because you have, thought police running around and stuff, because that's what they're concerned about, what you're thinking. And it's nobody's business. So if you want to know what I'm thinking, all I got to do is listen to my thing. But I mean, it's like, God knows how many things I've said for which I would be worthy of death in their eyes. God only knows. But all I've said is things that are, but they be righteous things. But you're not allowed to think those things. They don't want that to be part of society. But when the wicked are fat and they set their eyes on the earth, very often, because they set their heart on it, they come into possession of it. Like I said, in my state, there's a whole political party in this country based on keeping everybody fat, happy, and proud. Like, it's better to be lean and hungry. Wasn't it Shakespeare who talked about, was it Shakespeare in one of his plays where he talks about, I forgot which of the kings, I don't want lean men around me. I want fat men. He didn't want hungry men because he feared them. But the fat men have their own thing to fear also. A proud man who is, and I mean metaphorical fatness. I'm not talking about fat literally. I'm talking about metaphorically fat. Someone who is, and it often results in literal fatness. I mean, like I said, look at the governor of Illinois. But they become enriched. They become seated in power, right? They start thinking of themselves as important. Their pride is lifted up. They've set their eyes on the earth to possess it. And they will do very wicked things to maintain that. Or to obtain it. I mean, that's why I think that whole faction in our country has lost their minds over the past 4 years, because they didn't like a different faction taking control. They felt very much like they were in control. Everything from the state bureaucracy down to the individuals who are elected. They begin to think like it's their right to possess these things. And see, and if they are in power, they are like God's sword, because they bear not the sword in vain, like Paul talks about government. Careful when you mess with the power, because they bear not the sword in vain. It troubles me. I'm like, you know, fortunately, I think one thing I'll say for our governor is he seems actually, I'm sure he doesn't like, you know, he's not going to listen to me for one, so that's fine. He's never going to hear it. But he seems a little less crazy than some of them. Though I think he plays a dangerous game. So what I mean by crazy is like he's not as strictly authoritarian as some of these. He's been a little smarter than that. He doesn't want to have a rebellion on his hand. Because other than Chicago, Illinois is an extremely conservative place. Other than the cities, I guess. But that can be, you know, an issue. You can certainly rise up. So lurking in secret places, the wicked lay in wait. And I guess I use the current political situation because it makes me think of it, and also it's a learning experience, right? At least we can directly apply it. There's a lot of other, you know, like I said, they're not exactly, right now, you see how they're acting when they're out of power. Can you imagine what they'll do when they get power? When they have the sword of God in their hands? Meaning we are the state, we are the authority. Now let's see if the other translations decided that verse was too difficult and had to be changed. Or fixed, you know. I mean, the King James makes mistakes, by the way. So, you know, I'm not a sacred King James, you know, King James only mentality. Is not my mentality. But I just like the King James. I prefer it. I like the way it sounds coming off my lips. Except sometimes it's quite awkward, right? So, the wicked thy sword. I'm going to say with thy sword or something. Deliver me from the wicked with thy sword. Maybe let's just go right to the NIV, which is not strictly, it's a thought for thought translation, meaning they'll tell you what God was thinking when the scriptures were written. It's an attempt to, and you know what, here's the thing, when we read the scriptures, we do want to understand what they were thinking. But I don't know if I want that at the level of translation. You know what I mean? I want the text translated, and then a teacher should try to communicate the thoughts. But having thought-for-thought translations is very useful for comparison. Meaning some scholar pre-compared it, because I am not a scholar of the language. Therefore, you know what I mean? One of the things, like when I was talking about self-government and governing yourself, and I left off on this point, but about the scriptures. As a student of the Bible, it's funny I didn't finish that point, but as a student of the Bible, you need to be able to, like I said, I'm going to look at it with my own eyes fresh first. Then, let's go see what someone else says. And most of the time, even if I don't state my opinion, I already form it, and I might go here and check. But today, I very carefully didn't check until I had stated what I was thinking. But you have to be able to be self-governing enough to, like, if their idea is better, say, like, yeah, I like their idea better. And not get self-conscious and proud about having a moment of, like, well, I think it might mean this. Let's look at that. Like, you know what I mean? I know it might be very comforting for some people for me to, like I said, if I had time to take, like, a couple hours every day to read the scriptures I'm going to teach, to research everything ahead of time, to figure out what my conclusion is, what my opinion is, what I think the right thing is, and then just come out here and definitively say, this is exactly what it says, this is exactly what it means, this is how you should interpret this. But that just makes you dependent on me. And I do not do this to make people dependent on me. This Bible study is meant to be, well, it's I do it because I like doing it. Actually, that's what the main thing. There's no like real intentionality about it. It's just my style. But when I look at my style, what I hope the consequence of my style would be that it teaches people to weigh in the balance possibilities and not completely rely on single source and single opinion, even a group of opinions that agree, without critically examining it and saying, do I really agree with this? Does that make sense to me? And also to allow yourself to think for yourself, because God can speak to us that way. You know what I mean? So I think for myself, and I tell you what I think, then I'll go look and see what they say. I'm not a fan of the NIV, but I think it's useful to see what intelligent translators think the thought is here. That doesn't mean they're the be-all, end-all. God, no. There's plenty of... I don't remember specific places, but I remember finding examples in the NIV where I'm like, this is just... no way. I don't agree with this at all. And not only that, well, and mostly because it's like you're just taking away... I don't think it's that hard to understand the text, but you're changing the words so much to create the thought that it's almost like vandalism. I mean, that's how I feel. And that's why a lot of people don't like... and some of the reasons they harp on the NIV are silly. I've talked about that before. Like the whole silly Lucifer controversy. There's no Lucifer in the Hebrew Bible. But, and that's a Latin word. It means light bringer. And that's essentially what it said in the Hebrew. It was bright star, son of the dawn, which is the word for morning star, which also freaks people out because that's one of the names of Christ. Or something that he is described as being the bright and morning star. But what it was is it's comparing him to the Son of the Most High. And you if you prefer to think he's someone who exalts and aspired to great things. It was exalted. Okay, surround me. Let's see. Yeah. They have tracked me down. They now surround me with eyes alert to throw me to the ground. I do not think that's at all what it was saying. Their eyes are to the ground. To throw me to the ground. There's no throw me in there. Is there cast down? Was it two words though? Hold on, we'll go back and look at that. Because maybe they're right. Crouching for cover, rise up, confront them, bring them in with your sword, rescue me from the wicked. Okay, they think that's God's sword. Now, the other, what are like the... Let's see. To their babes. Okay. Portions of his life with your sword. Deliver my soul from the wicked with your sword. That's the New American Standard. Let's try... That's the New King James, what they think. Deliver my life from the wicked with your sword. I'm guessing the with is implied. This is the New King James tries to not be too interpretive. Deliver my soul from the wicked, your sword. With your hand from the Son of Man. The parallelism there is, like, arise, O Lord, confront him, cast him down. Deliver my life from the wicked with your sword, with your hand from men, O Lord. But wait, let's see what the regular King James says again. I don't know. I still like the deeper thought of one more back. One more. There we go. All right, now we're in the King James again. No. See, they have the which are in parentheses. That's interesting. Which is thy sword. And there is not with thy hand. It's from men thy hand. From men. Because here's the thing. This verse 14. And I see why they're doing that, because that is the simplest that's the simplest way to deal with the issue here, right? You say it's just, and maybe the King James translators got it wrong. But here's the thing. It can be an acknowledgement. You know, the wicked, if God does not deliver me from them, if he chooses to allow them to destroy me, they are his sword. You know, when it talks about, in Isaiah 53, when it talks about, you know, the suffering servant of God, and it's a passage that is clearly referring to Christ. It pleased God to bruise him. How did God bruise him? Well, he gave him into the hand of the Romans, into the hands of wicked men to kill him. And they were God's sword. For example, another one, like the Assyrian in the invasion. O Assyrian, the rod of mine anger, and the staff in their hand is my indignation. I will send him against the hypocritical nation, against the people. You know, in this psalm, he is so focused on his own personal integrity. He wants to let the Lord know, you see my personal integrity. Do not allow these wicked to have power over me. These are fat men with power. With a bit, you know, that's the implication. They are powerful. They are rich, enriched, whichever way. They can hurt me. They have their portion in this world. You know, God's given them a portion in the world. They have their reward, Jesus said. Speaking there of like people who pray in the streets, but in a sense, people who covet after riches. You know what I mean? They have their reward. If they have their riches, they have their reward. That is their portion from God. Because all the things we receive of this in this world and otherwise are of God in some capacity. And so the wicked can be when they are in power. If God gives them power over us. You know, in the scriptures, you know, it's like when God lets bad things happen to Job. You know, it's the devil that does it, but also it's God that allows it to happen. You know, and that's why we even go to God in prayer about these things, because we think he can do something about it. If they're not in some way, if he can't in some fashion control, limit, stop, destroy, interfere in some way with them, if he can't do that, then why bother praying? And if he can do that, then you can see the sense in which the psalmist is acknowledging that his enemies have the potential to be God's sword against him. So he's pleading to be delivered. Disappoint them that lay in wait for me. Cast them down. You can deliver me, the wicked, with thy sword, I suppose, instead of which is thy sword. It just says, from the wicked, thy sword. And obviously, it's left up to the reader, because that's in the Hebrew, that's what it says. It's basically, deliver my soul from the wicked, thy sword. Thy hand, O Lord, from men, thy hand, O Lord, from men of the world, which have their portion in this life. Their portion in this life may be they are government. Their portion in this life may be they are rich and they have power. And that otherwise there'd be no danger to the one who's praying here, David. This is David, right? Yep. It's prayer of David. They're a danger to him because they have done well in the earth. And God has allowed this. People who do well in the earth, they have certain gifts. Allow them to prosper. Whose belly thou fillest with hid treasure. You fill their belly. As I say, they are your hand. You filled them. You made them. You prepared them. Deliver me from them. You put them in power. That's why I don't like these other translations. They take the teeth out of the scriptures. Because this is the point he's saying. You filled them. You made them a sword against me. You made them all these things. And they are fat. They are proud. They are wicked. They lay in wait like lions. They've had every blessing that God could imagine. And they are so wicked. But you empowered them, O Lord. So deliver me. And they are full of children and leave the rest of their substance there. They inherit wealth. The thing about our governor, I don't think he created the whatever, there's some hotel chain he's associated with. I don't think he was the originator. Maybe he is. I don't know. He's the heir. And like the president, they're very similar in some ways. They inherited wealth. They became powerful. Right? Now the president, he is the sword of the Lord right now. That's what a lot of Christians are thinking, right? You know what I mean? But why? He's never been he's not a horrible person, but he's immoral, right? Immoral, not particularly religious. When he walked over to the church with the Bible in his hand, a lot of people were upset. Maybe Christians think, well, he's a hypocrite. He doesn't really believe or whatever. Well, you don't know what the guy believes, first of all. And he certainly hasn't been a particularly religious person for most of his life. But I see him walking with that Bible when I says, he respects my God. He respects my culture, my civilization. You know what I mean? He honors it. He carries it. He knows what he bears the banner of. And so I'm happy to see the sword put in his hand for this time. As I will have, I've often said, I've told my wife, a lot of times, there's people in my family, I'm like, maybe they hate me. I don't know. But when they're in my face, they respect me. And for the most part, if they don't actually do anything against me, like try to subterfuge behind my back, if they merely hate me in their heart and don't try to hurt me, it's just what they think. I don't care. I don't care what they think. Because they're being respectful outwardly. I mean, not just in the talk towards me, but they don't try to undermine me, hurt me, or otherwise, do something to, like mess around, trying to mess with me. I mean, they're not trying to undercut me or whatever. There's all kinds of ways to stab me in the back. I don't consider someone talking negatively about me behind my back necessarily to be stabbing me in the back, unless they're trying to influence someone against me. And that is backstabbing, metaphorically speaking. But I generally think of actual thing. Well, that would be something to try to hurt someone, try to drive wedges between them and other family members, right? Those things happen. But they outwardly respect me in my presence and to my associates. You know what I mean? They don't try to speak evil of me to my associates, my children, my wife, my friends. They don't try to undermine my relationships. Well, that's fine. I don't care if you hate me, then hate me. Go ahead. You know what I mean? God love you, but hate me. It's fine. But, and I look at the president the same way. It's like, outwardly, he's doing things that are right and honoring things that should be honored. It's like, if in his heart he somehow doesn't really believe it, does it make a difference to me if he's doing the right things? No, it doesn't. As a leader, I want the leader to lead properly. And I don't think it's all been wonderful or anything in recent times. I think the leadership has failed in many ways. I don't know how it could have succeeded because we are under a medical tyranny. And that these experts and stuff, we gotta. This can never be allowed to happen again, as far as I'm concerned. I don't. I hope people are upset enough when it's over. They'll say, you know what, never again. We're gonna let this happen. Next time, I can give my whole speech on what I think should happen. Should appeal to people's public spirit. Give them we think this could be dangerous. Here's what we think you should do. Like churches, they shouldn't have closed churches. They should have just said, you better be careful. You might spread disease in your services. You should consider closing down or doing something for a while till we get a handle on this. Well, we're leaving it up to you because we are free men. We govern ourselves. All you need is the information. All I need to do is tell you what's wrong, what the problem is, and because you're intelligent and free, and I trust you as a human being endowed by their creator with certain inalienable rights, which is something in this country is founded on. Therefore, I'm going to leave it up to you. You know, please be responsible. That's all I can ask. That's how it should have been done. Instead of coming down with these orders and commands and all that, it's like, that's not how this country works. Sorry. But apparently it does, because I just watched everyone I know, everyone just bent the knee. You know? I mean, even me, well, I went along with it for the first couple of weeks. Well, I didn't. Honestly, did I go along with it? The night when the stay-at-home order went into effect, I was not at home. I was doing unnecessary traveling and working with my brother. Because I got to survive. It's bad enough. It took away half my business. I'm not going to, fall on the sword and destroy the other half by not working. I've got a family to support. It's absolutely, it's like, yeah, stop working. Stop breathing. Okay, how about you? They're full of children. Leave the rest of their substance to their bed. Yeah, they inherit wealth. And those kids inheriting wealth are very often, not always, but inheriting wealth is treacherous business. You know it is. A lot of these, a lot of the Antifa types, the terrorist types of domestic leftist terrorists, they come from wealthy homes. They've been to colleges and stuff. They've been brainwashed. Fed a bunch of nonsense and stuff about our country and such. And it's, whatever. I'm not gonna get into that. We're almost done. I thought I might get through more than the psalm, but that's fine. You fill them with hid treasure, Lord. So please help me out with them. They're yours. That's what he's saying. They are your hand. If I'm in their power, because it's like this. This is what I know. I'm in God's power. All things work together for me for good because I love God and I'm called according to his purpose. So if I fall into the hands of the wicked, I haven't fallen into the hands of the wicked. I am still in the hand of God. If I have fallen under the sword of the wicked, if the wicked point a sword at me, that's destiny, man. That's God's will. So it's God's sword that's pointed at me. So I'm not going to be, that's why I try not to be afraid. When I wrote that song and stuff, I was like, I have a little bit of trepidation about it? I've been doing Bible studies here for 2 years on this, and then over the years, many others. How much political discourse do you hear from me? How much current events do you hear from me? Very little. In case you don't know. In case you haven't been listening long. Very little. I'm not particularly political. Though, I confess, I am somewhat political, obviously, if you're familiar with any of my other work. But it's mostly just a passing interest. I was a poli-sci major in college. I wanted to be a politician. I was even a deputy registrar in high school. But I turned away from that when I was at college the first year because I committed my life to the Lord and to his service. And I didn't know how to do that. I didn't know what shape that would take. Then it became have a family, be an example. At least I hope to be an example. I consider to be an example of both failure and success. You know, I like what Paul said. You know, I'd rather glory in my infirmities. I'm glad I can sit here and talk about my weaknesses. I can talk about me being obese, you know, or being overweight if I want to use the present tense. Having been obese, being overweight, I would rather talk about that so I can talk about it and help others who suffer from the same thing. I can glory because God delivered me out of certain things, but because of my weakness, God was strong in my life to change it. You know, these people are focused on the earth. They've got wealth. They've got power. They're passing it down to their heirs. You know what I mean? And it's like this inherited wealth and power and all that. I think I covered that enough. Does it make it clear? Yeah, I don't like the other translations, deliver me with thy sword, deliver me with thy hand. I don't think they get it. You know, here's the that's the problem with these thought for thought translations. They don't get the thought right. I just don't think they get it right. Because like I said, whose belly thou fillest? Is there some place where it says something else in another translation that's not that? I'm not going to go back there. I ain't got time. We're done. I'm pretty sure in the other translation it's not going to say something other than thou fillest their belly with hid treasure. You fill their belly. You put the sword in their hand. You know? They are yours. I am yours. So I'm not, I consider myself, though I'm surrounded with the wicked, I know I am in God's hands. And here's the thing, it's an important mindset. Because otherwise you can lose your mind. Being compassed with the wicked, I'm like, wow, this is what the Lord's brought to be. As opposed to being like, God has forsaken me. Though that is a perfectly normal feeling. There's so many hidden nuggets of wisdom in the Psalms, are there not? You know, I really think that's a very, like this is, you know what I mean? And like, it shows you, the problem with certain translations is they want to interpret the scriptures for you. They don't, you know what I mean? Because like, look, you could say that's an easy translation to make. But what I'm saying about the sword of the Lord in this case is also true. I can give you other scriptures to back it up. Just like I said, Paul talking about the government and obey the power. You know, see that thou do not. I forget what it says, but something the power. You know, don't offend the power. Don't fight the power. Whatever. I mean, be careful about it. Certainly. I don't know if it says don't fight the power. Fight the power. All right. But you know, because they bear not the sword in vain. You gotta be careful when you're dealing with the state because they have the sword. And also, like the Assyrian rod of my anger, staff in their hand is my indignation. There's all kinds of scriptures where the wicked are standing in for God. And so, what the psalmist here is saying, he's pleading his innocence, talking about his very lips are the truth, and he is surrounded with these wicked, and God, they're yours. You filled them with substance. You put the sword in their hand. I'm at their mercy. I'm at your mercy. Thank God for that. I'm at your mercy, God. So deliver me. Deliver me from these fat, proud, wicked men. There's no way I'm going to believe that, you know, man, like, give me not into their hands. I'm not going to pray like, well, if you will. I'm just saying, no, don't give me, you know, obviously whatever God wills is going to happen. As for me, I will behold thy face in righteousness. I shall be satisfied when I awake with thy likeness. What it means is I'm going to see you. I'm going to be satisfied. What do it mean to see God in the face? We have to cover this, so we're going to go over a bit. That's fine. This is a good point. I have to behold thy face in righteousness. What do you mean to behold thy face? No man sees God. You know? No man has seen God and lived. I mean that's what it says. I mean, because you can't, and truly, no man can truly see God. You know what I mean? Let me show you, tell you exactly what I mean. Like, sometimes you'll see, like, in space movies, or such, you'll see these views of planetary systems, where the planetary systems seem like, you know, like here's Earth and here's the Jupiter, and they're not that far from each other. You know, they seem much closer than they really are. And because, and I know about this because of my work in the artistic realm of things on the computer, there's something called field of view. And well, it's basically like a while in a two-dimensional thing. It's like a bending of things, but in the real life, like if you're gonna feel like you're small, your eyes need to actually get closer together as you get smaller, and you're an observer who could see like all the things in the world at once. I think I talked about this recently. Would have to have eyes exceedingly far apart for you to see the galaxy. You know what I mean? Like imagine if you had eyes, one eye at the sun and the other eye at Pluto. All right? And that was your perceptive range. Like it's almost unimaginable. But you would see the whole solar system at one time because you were so huge. And God is so huge like that no one, you know what I mean, that from our perspective on Earth, we can't really perceive something that large. That's why you could never really, some of the visualizations of the galaxy are computer visualizations of galaxies and the universe and stuff, but you could never look at it that way with your naked eye. Just like out in space, it's mostly just you look around black with stars off in the distance. You never get no matter how far back you get, things just don't look the way that way because your observation, your perspective of observation is too small. Maybe that's difficult to understand. I don't know. Maybe I didn't do a good job. Anyways, we can't perceive God entirely, but we can perceive him in particular. You know, no man has seen God any time, but the Son has revealed him to us. There was one time where he says, "You will see my backside." And there's also times where it talks about, "You will see my face. The servants shall serve him, and they shall see his face, and his names will be in their foreheads." Revelation, chapter 22. And so to behold the face of God is to perceive God, because the face of a man gives you a lot to, like you only need to see my face. And why do you think when they have profiles, there's just the face? Because the face is the unique individual thing about that person. I mean, you might be able to recognize someone by their body. I don't know if they got some notable features or something like that, right? Tattoos or moles or something. I don't know. But to look at God in the face is a sort of a metaphor for understanding God on some level, on some important aspect of his character and nature. Some of the most important aspects of his character and nature. And he's saying, I see you, God. I see God in righteousness. And I will be satisfied with your likeness. Meaning that you feel all this happens, right? But all this that happened, I give my prayer to you, but I am satisfied knowing you. You know what I mean? I'm satisfied knowing God. Because seeing the face of God, it's sort of like having God revealed to you. Oh, that's who you are. You know what I mean? Like, who is it? And you see the face, like, oh, it's this person. Even when you don't know someone, when you see your face, when you see their face, like someone like comes to the door, who is it? And you open the door, it's a stranger. But it's like, when you see their face, it's like, oh, it's this person. You know what I mean? And same thing with God, that, oh, it's you. Who are you? He is God that fills everything. Fills the wicked. Fills their belly with hid treasure. Puts the sword in their hand. I'm satisfied because I know who God is. You know what I mean? I see the righteousness of God in his face. In knowing who he is, I am, it gives me insight into the righteous nature of God. And there's a prayer that when he talks about when I awake, laying on his bed, there was some references of that, was there not? You've visited me in the night, right? You've proved my heart. You've looked at my heart in the night, like like the subconscious. And when I come to my conscious, back to my consciousness, and you've tried me and all these things, and I've meditated on these things, I will look at you, I will be satisfied. When I come to my conscious thoughts again, I'll be satisfied no matter what happens. Because I trust God. Because I know I'm not in the hands of the wicked. I'm in the hands of the Lord. And therefore, He still has the power to deliver me. I mean, it's not like I fell out of God's hands. It's not like I'm slipping and sliding towards destruction. And God's like, what's happening? My servants are being killed. I don't know what's going on here. What's happening? Anyways, that's well over. 10 minutes over. Okay. I didn't think that would be such a long study. All right, we'll start Psalm 18 tomorrow. Thanks for joining me in this study. Look forward to another study tomorrow.
My soul cleaveth to the dust. Quicken thou me according to thy word. I have declared my ways, and thou heardest me. Teach me thy statutes, make me to understand the way of thy precepts. So shall